Alright, back for another beer review, and today I'll be reviewing yet another beer from the Goose Island Beer Company in their headquarters in Chicago, Illinois, and this is their Goose IPA. So this is an IPA that comes in at 5.9% alcohol by volume, 55 IBUs at the time of review. I don't know exactly how old this bottle is, but it does have a drink by date of October 30th of 2025, and we're about 6 weeks away from that date. So according to the brewery, we should be more than good to go. So I'm reviewing this one as a shelfie beer for the month of September 2025, and full disclosure, I've had this one before, but it's been a very long time, well over a decade. And the last time I had this one, I remember it being like an English IPA with an American twist. I think that's still the case based on the hops in this one. So I checked their website. This one is brewed with Pilgrim, Celeia, Cascade, and Centennial. The first two hops are European hops, with Pilgrim specifically being from cultivated in the UK, and then the last two hops, Cascade and Centennial, classic American hops. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to revisiting this one for the first time in many years. It just says hoppy, grapefruity, refreshing. All right, pretty generic tasting notes. Now, I will say I recently was cleaning out my cupboards and I found a couple Goose Island glasses. I found this, and then I have like another bigger glass that just has the Goose Island logo. This is like the fancy glass. I remember buying this like right around the time where I bought maybe Bourbon County for the first time. This had to be back in like the early to mid 2010s, somewhere between like 2013 and 2015. So I thought, you know what, I would use it. I haven't used this glass probably in about a decade. So I figured, hey, let's give it a go and see what it's all about. Probably dirty glass mafia everywhere because I haven't used it in such a long time. Obviously I washed it out, but that doesn't mean anything. We're probably gonna have a bunch of dirty glass mafia going on, but we'll see. Ooh, this is a lot lighter than I anticipated. We'll do something like that. I'm not gonna pour it all in because I kind of want to get my schnoz in there. And yeah, so something like this on the side, Goose IPA. So that is really light. Now on camera, it's probably gonna look maybe a little, no, it's about just exactly how you're seeing, I'm seeing. It has this like light orange color, maybe even you could say like a golden orange color. Clarity is through the roof, you can see through it. The way I poured it when I was getting a big head, it has a thin film of an off-white, maybe eggshell white colored head. Decent carbonation. This does not have the nucleation that promotes the carbonation at the bottom, but I think as far as like a old school IPA goes, this is a little bit lighter than I remember. This kind of looks like a new school like West Coast IPA or West Coast Pilsner or something, but the clarity's through the roof. That's pretty awesome. So anyway, let's get a nose. Grapefruity for sure. Lots of like white grapefruit zest, pith, rind. A little bit of like a sweeter orange. Big floral and pine notes. Almost like a pine cone. Very intense on the pine. The malt character here is a little bit more rich and like has more of a depth of flavor, or I should say aroma, than anything. It has more like this bready, slightly caramel, maybe biscuity kind of malt. I don't think they listed the malts on the website. This smells like so many old school American pale ales or like American IPAs that, like I said, more of like a new school West Coast IPA as far as like the malt character, the lightness of it, but the actual aromatics remind me of an old school like Midwest IPA, East Coast IPA. I always revert back to like Dogfish had 60 Minute as like the standard for like when I'm talking about like an East Coast IPA. This isn't as complex as something like that, but it's not far off. In the nose anyway. Listen, it smells, they say hoppy, grapefruity, refreshing. Yes, it has grapefruit, citrus in general, orange. There's a big floral, resinous pine quality that's almost pine cone-esque. Nice malt character here that's not dominating, but definitely noticeable. And let's be honest, this is not super fresh. I don't know if they give this like 3, 4, or 6 months, maybe even longer. But considering we're 6 weeks away from the best by date, I'd imagine this bottle's probably like 3, 4 months old, somewhere in that realm. So yeah, anyway, let's get into it. Cheers, everyone. It has a nice level of bitterness to it for sure. Definitely grapefruit-esque. And it's like bittering white grapefruit, 100%. There's not a ton of flavor here from the hops. And again, that could be something because of the age, but again, they give a drink by date of a certain date. I'm under that date by 6 weeks. So listen, that's on them if they, I'm picking this up and I feel like it should be fresher, but I also know that from drinking as many beers and being, a beer tuber, I kind of have an idea of like how old this is. This isn't all that complex, but it's not bad. Like, it's fine. But I think this is actually impressive for 5.9%. This is like medium, a touch over medium, a little bit bigger than anticipated. It's not thin or watery or anything, so that's nice. The mouthfeel is an old school IPA mouthfeel of a nice, crisp, moderate carbonation, smooth on the second half of the palate. The level of dryness and bitterness on this beer is very big for something that's sub 6%, which is surprising to me. So right at the forefront, right at the tip of the tongue, that white grapefruit zest, pith, rind, hits the tongue, carries across the palate, an omnipresent fixture here on the palate. It never goes away. It's the predominant note. It's always noticeable. But outside of the tip of the tongue, it's not always the predominant note. It just is the most prominent note throughout the palate. There's underlying, again, there's that orange, a little bit of a sweet orange, but also like an orange peel. Midway through the palate, I might think of something in like the underripened, like peach realm, maybe underripened pineapple, a little bit of stone fruit, tropical, very, very minute. There's a beautiful underlying, again, more of like a biscuity, bready kind of malt character. It kind of reminds me, maybe in crackery, again, of a West Coast IPA in the new school realm where they're going for like a lighter, like Pilsner malt and something to just carry the hop character. That's kind of what's going on here. And based on the color of this and the way it's drinking and everything, that's kind of what I'm thinking this beer is as a whole. So, yeah, let me pour in the rest of here. I don't think there's any there's really no sediment at the bottom or anything. So we're going to pour in the rest. I mean, in this hashtag proper glassware, I think this beer looks pretty damn nice. I mean, look, it just looks like a nice hop forward beer of some sort. I mean, you can't really go wrong. And I love the little, goose on there as far as their like logo is concerned, but that looks beautiful. It's a beautiful looking beer. All right, another sip. Yeah, the finish has that big, I'd say bone dry finish, a moderate bitterness. If you're someone who doesn't like dry and bitter IPAs, you're like more in the new school realm of hazies and New England styles, this is not for you. This is an old school beer through and through. The only issue I'm having is the flavor is not that complex and it's also not that intense. It's really just white grapefruit from, again, the zest, pith, rind, a little bit of orange, that underlying like crackery, biscuity malt, and then that pine that pine cone feeling on the finish with a little bit of like a floral sensation. If I was in the mood for something where I just want to crush a bunch of bitter IPAs and not think twice for 5.9%, plus we'll get into the value of this one. Yeah, this is a damn solid beer. That's kind of what this is a damn solid shelfy beer that wherever Goose Island's available, it's probably, in your grocery store, gas station, whatever. Yeah, I could get down with something like this, but I'm not going to go out of my way to buy this probably ever again. And I'll be honest with you, this does not remind me of an English IPA in the least. Like, I thought in the nose maybe the malt character would scream that, but in the taste, it's more of like an old school American IPA. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It's definitely unbalanced. It's more dry and bitter than anything else. You can't taste the 5.9% ABV, but from the bitterness standpoint, I would think this is at least 6%, if not higher. So it doesn't hide it well, but it doesn't really need to. Rating something like this is kind of weird because I don't know where I should rate it or how I should rate it, but I'm just going to go with gut instinct here because, again, ratings don't matter. They only matter to the person rating them, and it's in the eye of the beholder. You might drink this, think it's a 5 out of 5. You might drink this, think it's a 1 out of 5. But I think this is solid, but kind of forgettable. But I think it's a solid beer. Like, I gotta call a spade. It's a solid beer. So Goose IPA from Goose Island, I'm going to give this a straight 3.75 out of 5. I've had much worse IPAs from so-called better breweries, and I've had much better IPAs from all kinds of breweries, but this is pretty good and kind of right in the realm of what I would expect this beer should taste like, outside of maybe a little bit more malt complexity or malt character in general, just because it's like an older recipe, but at the same time, whatever, right? Not a big deal. Price point availability, $10.49 a 6-pack where I saw this. If it comes in 12 packs, I'm imagining $15-16, and it might be even under $10 where you are. Maybe it's more $11-12 for a 6-pack, who knows? But buying a 12-pack, you're going to get the better deal. And then availability is Goose Island. They have a beer finder on their website. Check them out. But if you do see Goose Island products, this is like one of their year-round flagship offerings. Everybody knows Goose Island for the Bourbon County series, but back in the day, they had Honkers Ale 312. They had the Goose IPA. and a lot of just like year-round beers that they were known for before they were bought by Anheuser-Busch back in the day. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think this is a solid, well-made, enjoyable, old-school IPA. Nothing wrong with it. I just want more of a balance. This could be a little bit sweeter, a little bit more fruit character, just as a whole, a little bit more complexity and depth to the flavor, and definitely more balanced. But I don't dislike it. I think it's pretty solid. So anyway, if you've had this one before, whether it's recently, you know, 10, 15 years ago, whatever the case may be, post in the comment section. Do you remember this one being better, worse? Do you remember it being different? Have they tweaked it over the years? It seems like they have. I don't remember this beer being like this. I remember it being a little bit more malt driven, definitely more in the English IPA realm with a little bit of like American flair. This just screams to me like an old school American IPA now, or even American Pale Ale. It's more bitter than American Pale Ale, but kind of in that realm where it's like, ooh, it's definitely a little bit more intense with that bitterness and dryness and hop character as a whole. So anyway, I'm going to shut this one down. That does it for another shelfie beer review. Check back in a couple days for another shelfie beer review. And I think the last one is going to be the last shelfie beer review until January of 2026. So hopefully you guys enjoy the shelfie beer reviews. I do, and we're going to be bringing them back in January 2026. And we're going to change up the format a little bit, variety pack plus some other beers, and should be a good time. So anyway, I appreciate each and every one of you for stopping by for another beer review here on the Beer Patrol. To the next one. Cheers.